Welcome to the Liquid Dinosaur Show. I am one of your hosts, ShadowsaurusRex, and I am accompanied today by Doc. Today's topic is, well, shenanigans and diesel and automotive. So we were talking about that video I sent you.
Which one? You sent
The
me a
one
lot
with,
of.
yeah, that's true. The last one with the crown in the def tank and the gas and the diesel.
That was interesting.
What
That
were
was
you, what were
really
you,
interesting. You what?
so what were you? What was the point you're trying to make with that? Just don't understand what was going on with there?
Well, the purpose behind it, I guess, would be the first thing to. I mean, not that I advocate drinking, but there's a different place for Crown Royal than in the Def Tank.
Right?
Gasoline. Anytime I seen gasoline being used in a diesel, it didn't turn out well.
Well, especially in a common rail system.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of times I've had to bail people out that the wife put the wrong mixture in the tank and she didn't want to run. So,
Yeah, I've seen that more than once.
or the green hose stands for green gas. It's. I've seen
Or
that one.
so how many times have you ran into this where people put def in the fuel tank?
I've seen that on, unfortunately, too many times on the box trucks and whatnot.
On the box trucks?
Yeah,
So the one with the crappiest uh, fuel system setup is the one that you had to clean out.
yeah,
Man, they run those lines really dumb.
all over the place. Depends on which version you get with off of the Detroit or the Cummins. The Detroit, the Cummins was a little better on their routing. It's still kind of tight. They pack those filters in so tight you have to try to become a contortionist to get to them. And then the wiring was always, as you know, too short. You'd try to unplug it and it'd end up breaking the connector or breaking the wire. Or then you got to work on trying to figure out how to splice everything to get it back in there. If you could get the connector and the proper wire.
Right.
Because I didn't, even with the hoses, and sometimes on those, when it was off a Detroit system, the doser was down low and it took road garbage really bad.
So on the Freightliners, because I haven't dealt with a lot of like the older after treatment, where do they put the decomp to?
Well, it was between the two, and it depends. We ended up with some of them that was the newer system where it was that big old loaf looking sucker. Remember we had at school there?
Ew.
Excuse me. That
So
wasn't
like
fun.
So like the one I was working on yesterday, it was easy access. It was right in front of your face. And for those who don't know, decomp tube is decomposite tube. You want to explain what it does, Doc?
Well, your decomp tube is used to mix your SCR liquid or your urea compound with the exhaust so that the temperatures would break it down to remove more of your NOx. So, in a long way, without getting too technical on it, the older systems had the decomp folded, whereas as you remember, it was easier to get to it that way. You still had to loosen up the DPF, DOC to spread them apart to get to it. And that alone could be an interesting concept because all of the brackets were either, uh, out here in Texas, they was either saltified because, it does get a little bit of snow and whatnot. And that makes for another show, as you full well know.
Or like in my application, what I deal with the dump trucks being with asphalt and sand, and you get all that asphalt built up. It is a nightmare to get it off.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
there.
so, for what?
Oh, I was going to say, we talked about this yesterday about then there was trying to get the right gaskets and clamps for the things, you know, shoot, that was an act of futility because Even if you had the numbers of the truck or the numbers of the system, they never were the same. You almost had to take, and most of the time, I had to take the clamp and the gaskets in and see if they could match them up.
Right. That's such a good point. For any techs or anybody watching this stuff, just because the gaskets come, especially on the Kenworth for the bellow pipe, the TRP kits, you are a 50-50 shot for the right ones.
That found that out. Yeah.
If
Um.
it if it tightens way quick, you got the wrong clamp. If it doesn't
Yeah.
tighten at all, you definitely got the wrong clamp.
Well, there were numerous times, and I don't know about you, where I had to reuse the decomp clamps because they were the wrong ones, and you couldn't get them for another 4 or 5 days.
Yeah,
So
well, I've had to do that plenty of times.
had to reuse that and hope like heck it didn't strip or anything, because those little 10 millimeter bolts on those or nuts on those clamps were easy strippers.
That, and if you don't pay close enough attention, you realize that a lot of your decomp clamps compared to like your DPF or even your turbo clamps, the threads are different. So you can't
That
just
is
swap nuts around.
that is true. Excuse me. You almost had to have a container of extra nuts and whatnot rolling around, and then it didn't really work with that because, as you said, the thread pitch on those suckers was, I don't know where they figured that one out at.
Well, then, this is actually a good topic. So the clamps, why is it that like they call them a hump hose? That is your silicone rubber going from charged air cooler to turbo pipe. Why are those clamps have springs on them and like the DPF ones don't? They have
That's
O-rings
interesting.
to keep them.
The onlyest thing I can think of, and throw this out for a little bit of thought, was that in the event of an issue, the spring would allow it to burp or to break loose or something. But don't, correct me if I'm wrong. It don't make sense, but that or it was there to with the proper torque to provide tension at all times on
Yeah, but me and you
it.
both know there is no such thing as proper torque when it comes to those damn clamps. All the mechanics are just gonna impact them.
The Ugga Dugga ones.
Yeah, then you wonder why they strip out.
True that. True that.
Which I'm 100% guilty of it. I am not knocking on mechanics. I do it myself. That's why I'm making the joke.
Yeah, I got a torque wrench. It's in the drawer out there.
I don't
But
have a small enough one. I got a half-inch one, and I'm sorry, I'm not bringing a half-inch torque wrench.
well, like I said, it's in the drawer out there. It never was in the service truck. my
Well, and
my
and that's why I like my Milwaukee impacts because all the ones that I have are the programmable ones, so you can set its torque.
Yeah. Well, I have a Milwaukee one too. It's a 3H drive. Then I have a
Yeah, so is mine.
snap on 3H drive. Takes that. What is that? Uh, that 20-volt battery or something. You slide on the back of
Yeah,
it. Yeah. And it looks like a gun.
right.
It's called a 3/8 inch impact. You'll get that. That'll catch up with you here in a minute.
Trying to keep it PG.
I know. But seriously, out along the road, there was a lot of things I didn't take. When you get a call for this thing, because this thing's got a check engine light on, and it's gone into a D rate, and you got to go outside the road or with the wind and the traffic, and hope like heck it ain't much traffic, and try to figure out why this dang thing did what it did. There's a lot of things you don't do that you should probably do.
Right, and then to kind of keep going off of that, another point of this whole channel is to really kind of give a real world experience to this because all the schools are going to go off a book.
True.
And my perfect example of this, so like PACCARs, which, as you know, Doc, that's kind of been the majority of my experience right now.
Yeah.
So if you go on, it's called RMI, Repair and Maintenance Information, that you have to go to a special website for because everything with the PACCARs are so internet driven,
Yeah.
which is absolutely stupid, but that's a different conversation. But if you go
True
to
that.
RMI and everything, they give you you have to really go digging, but it gives you times and everything for certain things. So in this example would be the oil thermostat. If you look at RMI, it tells you it's a 0.1 hour job.
It takes you that long to get the hood open.
0.1. But everything with PACCAR is based off of the engine being out of the frame.
That's an interesting concept there too.
So if you go to the oil thermostat, and I'll take YouTube shorts of this and everything. I'll do short videos so everybody else can see what I'm talking about. Literally, you have in the oil thermostat, you have I wish I had one, but you have a plastic covering, which I'll probably edit it and put one in there. It's a little 4-inch thing that says plastic, and then you have a spring, and then you have the actual oil thermostat. Then you have the cap that's got 3 Torx bolts on it. You literally have to get the cap off and then the thermostat and bring that plastic thing out and up and hit it out. You have to take a screwdriver to the top of it and pound it out.
Wow.
Because it doesn't have enough clearance, and you got to get wiring and airlines out of the way. So
Yeah.
your 0.1 hour job really turns into like a half hour to an hour job.
Yeah.
And if you have to pound it out, you know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
You got to love tap it in. It's
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah, there's excuse me, there's lots of concepts like that. Like on the DD5, trying to adjust the valves. Okay, you got a valve issue, you got an issue alongside the road, and they want you to run the valves right away, or in a parking lot. Seriously, we're talking about service truck, service call type stuff where you're not in a shop. Well, you got to, as you know, remove all of the garbage. They don't give you a great lot of time to do it. But then you got to go down underneath and then put the bar and over device underneath so you can bar it over to line the marks up so you can go up and see which ones they are. And, so you, in reality, okay, a job that would normally take if the bar and over device was readily available or handier to get to off of the front of the truck so you wasn't jumping all around on the thing, it makes it so much easier. But they make these uh, jobs so that it works fine when it's out on the ground, and no.
And for those who don't know, a bar over tool is a specialty tool that's got splines on it that goes into your flywheel, so you can turn the motor over to set. Because I think the DDs, they have markings on the flywheel like the PACCARs, right?
Yeah.
So it'll go A, B, C, and it tells you what cylinder to adjust, right?
Well, the 5 didn't. It just had a mark. So you'd run the mark over, and it was either 1 through 1. I think it was 1, 3, 5, and well, it's only a 6-cylinder, but you know what I mean. There was only 3 of them on there, and then you'd roll it over to the other 180 degrees, and then go do the others. So yeah,
So it's like a cat.
Yes, exactly.
So you bar it over to, I think it's your first notch, and then you adjust a bunch of exhaust and intake valves throughout the system.
Right.
And then you got your secondary. You go to cylinder 6 and then pin it, and you do the other half.
Yeah, pretty much. This you just roll it 180 on the flywheel and do it again.
So stupid.
Yeah. Well, and then like you say, let's be realistic here. You get underneath on the Detroit, and this is on the Freightliner also. The box truck. You get underneath there, and they got all of the battery wires that run right in front of where this barn over device is supposed to do. So you got to go up the block to unbolt this bracket here to lower the electric wires down from the jump start mode on the other side, and then you get to go down to the bottom, and then there's 2 more brackets, and you go to the other side and another bracket, and you get maybe 3/4 of an inch. So you got to put a bar in there to pry down to get your barn over device in there, so you can get your. And I know it sounds elongated and all of this stuff, so you can get your ratchet in there, so you can do this.
Well, that's what we want is the elongated thing. So, because there's a lot of guys coming to the industry that think this shit's going to be easy.
This is true, and it's. I enjoyed my work, but I mean, there were times where I'd say, and when I say the jump mode, these wires went over to the side of the frame where they could jump a truck off if it needed to jump start it, instead of pulling the batteries down.
Right.
It had the two lugs on the frame, which in my instance made a lot of no sense because I got to take the battery box off anyway to check the batteries with the multimeter, right? And then I got to load test them, right? And if they're bad, then I got to put batteries in. So what good did that do me?
Not a
Well,
whole lot of good.
did you try jump starting it? No, the batteries are dead. And
Right.
then, like we say, this is getting off on a tangent, but I got a service truck. My truck is not going to jump start that system. It might make it happy for a minute.
Not when it's that dead. And
Yeah, or this would where you'd get that. The driver complains, "Well, my truck won't start." Well, does it turn over? Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And you get in it and goes, and that's it. I thought you said it turned over. Well,
it
it did.
does. Well, or you get those cases like that. We get those calls. It's like, well, it turned over. And then you get out there and it clicks. Like, I thought you said it turned over. Well, I was like, let me guess. You kept cranking it.
Yeah, until it was nothing happened.
It's like, why, dude? Or, I ran into this situation not that long ago. So on an ISM, even in Arizona, when those ISMs get cold, they will not start. And it's the craziest thing
Right.
ever. Because down where this truck was sitting over in the pit, and it gets 38 degrees down there sometimes.
Yeah.
Which, for the rest of the world, yeah, I get it. It's not that cold. You got places that are colder. But, for Arizona, that's normally like 70 degrees at this time of year. That's pretty cold. I come from Utah. I understand. 38 degrees isn't all that cold. It gets colder. I'm well aware. But you're talking about an application where a dump truck is so used to 70 degrees or higher
Yeah.
and 120 in the summer. Yeah, even engines get used to certain stuff.
Well, and
It's
it
a
goes
weird
back.
concept.
Sorry about that. It goes back to the same thing we're talking about. I mean, we could go on forever with battery maintenance and all the other stuff. And then, like you said, it's hard to turn over. Those Detroits were the same way. That thing would wing over and sound like you'd think to yourself, man, this thing is not going to go. And all of a sudden, it'd pop and rattle. So, yeah.
And this is totally an NCO thing to say, but I'm going to piggyback off that. And, you got common row, which when an injector is cold, it sounds like it's a rod knock. Sometimes it is hard to tell. And the perfect example is an ISX 15. That first generation common row, once they're cold and they're warming up, they sound like they're going to come apart. And it is kind of scary if you're not used to it.
Yeah, the old Caterpillars used to rattle and clack and whatnot, and you'd think the bottom was going to fall off them.
Oh, like what the old what came after the 3406?
Well, you had your 3208 in there and your 3408 and 30, you had your whole generations in there. Then you had, you're talking six cylinders. Let me see.
Oh, you're like your first generation C12s
Yeah.
when they're still using Huey.
Yeah.
Those sound like they were gonna rattle apart. Then you get guys that hop them up and everything.
But yeah, it's, and the thing is on when we talk battery maintenance, okay, you got, okay, a 2-year warranty on a battery if you're fortunate. And you being on the desert and then me being in upper west of Texas there in Lubbock, it takes a beating on them. The weather does, because we go from an extreme, and here, you'll see 108 degrees, which in Arizona that's Bermuda short weather, and here and but I mean we go from dang cold, like I told you yesterday, it was 31 degrees as a high, and today we might get 56. But your batteries take a beating on them things, and the charging system is so important on these, and battery maintenance. And a lot of people, or a lot of industries, or a lot of manufacturers, not even manufacturers, the people who own these things, don't put the batteries on a good maintenance schedule to check them regularly and check the fittings. And I don't mean to keep going on, but how many times I've gone out and it won't start, the batteries are dead, and it's a doggone battery cable, you know? Well, yeah, drivers ain't going to check anything, and they don't do a good job of doing any of that. But any tech that's in there and you got loose battery cables, come on. You just called
You
me
know,
out on a service call for this?
right? And that's actually a good thing to bring up because what I have noticed, so like when I was in your class, let's backtrack here a little bit. So I'm a mobile mechanic, and Doc here was my last instructor that I had. He was my Cummins engine instructor, and honestly, you guys can tell, I still talk to him a lot.
Yep.
I learned more from this guy out of class than I did in class. And the amount of experience that he has just by himself, plus my 20 years of this industry, is next level.
Yeah. Well, I
And
appreciate that.
so Doc, when you were training us, me and my class, you kept telling us the KISS method. Why are newer mechanics not being trained that?
To me, after going through this here in where I'm at now, excuse me, to me, it was because they were trained more toward looking toward the most expensive repair and money. Keeping it simple, KISS, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, or, you shouldn't use stupid, but anyway.
Oh, we're
But
using it.
that explains me, because there's a lot of times, even after all of these years, there's a lot of times where I'll go and as we talk about rabbit trails, all of a sudden there's a rabbit hole and I jump down it and it's the wrong way. But if I'd have checked the other thing, it was it. And you knowing well when you was in my class that a lot of my test outs were designed to be very simple fixes, but a lot of rabbit holes.
Okay, I'm going to tell a story here just because you brought it up. Class 3, we were doing a test out, and I got the hardest one. Now, there's two parts of this story. There was another instructor that kind of told us what the issues were, so I knew ahead of time. But no, I did not follow the KISS method. I'm going to tell you that right now. Because someone over here thought it'd be a good idea to throw me down the rabbit holes on purpose.
Now, who would that be?
Yeah, I wonder who that was. And doing this test out, that was an X15, wasn't it?
Yes.
So the complaint was it was running when it came to the shop. It's not running now. It had 4 or 5 different codes. It wouldn't even crank. It wouldn't even connect to data link. It wouldn't connect to Insight. I'm like, okay, so I went into wiring, diagrams, everything. I was like, okay, well, we have a main fuse that powers all of that. It's got to be the fuse. I test the fuse. I'm like, okay, fuse is blown. Okay, serviceable part. So I go to Doc. Hey, I got a fuse that's blown. It serves. First thing out of this guy's mouth. Well, why'd it blow? Well, because you put a blown fuse in it. What are you talking about? Why it blew? It's a serviceable part. Nah, that's not it. So I'm going through the whole harness, ripping everything apart, trying to figure out, okay, where's my short? I'm like, okay, we got a short somewhere. And Doc let me stew on this for a day. I'm like, it's a serviceable part. I don't know. Oh, I'm about to go pull a fuse out of another engine. And I was like, Doc, I'm to the point I'm about to go pull a fuse out of another engine. Well, why if that's not it? No, it's it. Are you sure? Doc, it's a serviceable part. Are you sure? So I'm like, I gotta walk away from this for a minute. I'm getting mad. And then the next morning, Doc's like, oh yeah, here's that fuse you asked for. What the
Well,
heck, Doc?
at least you didn't go get Scotch fuse.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So I put the fuse in, finally hooked up to Insight, and it had a depth tank code and some water and fuel sensor code. And Doc's like, okay, listen to shop talk. So I go in there and I look up the code, and on the very bottom of anything with Cummins, it gives you a shop talk, which is things prior technicians have seen. So I'm reading, I'm like, none of this is relevant to what I'm doing. Which it was. If I would have read it all the way instead of quick reading it, I would have found out that there were known issues with the fill water filter cap. In this case, someone drilled holes in it. Then on the depth tank, the connector was taken apart and it was shorted out on purpose. Which I knew about, but I forgot. Because I went down 5 or 6 different rabbit holes at this point, and Doc is sitting there laughing at me the whole time.
Good times.
Now, out of all my experience, because this would have been my 3rd or 4th round of college at this point. So I've had plenty of different professors and everything. This is the first time I got everything done, and then I go to him, and the first thing out of his mouth is, how do you think you did? I have, on my yellow notebook that he gave me, I have 6 pages of diagnostic stuff that I did, because Cummins isn't going to approve a warranty unless everything is documented. Oh, I documented everything, then some. And I'm just fuming at this point. I looked at Doc like, what do you mean? You threw me through rabbit hole, through rabbit hole, through rabbit hole. I got mad a bunch of times. I took the longest at everybody. And I'm the one that's working in the field. I did not do that good. So no, Doc, I think I get the bare minimum grade. He's like, yeah, that's about right. Like, thanks, Doc. Love you too. And, for anybody who sits there and think that I'm complaining, I'm not. He did this to everybody.
Yep.
And I thought what he did to me was bad. No, he purposely kept swapping out fuses. And did you switch out relays too?
Yeah.
So another student, Doug, and every time Doug would find the problem, he would walk away. Doc would go out and change something else, so it'd be a new problem. And you did that for like 2 days straight, didn't you?
Yep.
You did that to Doc and Scott. No, you did it to Doug and Scott.
Well, and a little trailer here for this. People that think that I was brutal with these guys, the idea behind all of this test out was, what are you going to do when stuff goes bad? What are you going to do when it isn't what you think it is? Are you going to quit, or are you going to do your job as a technician and double check everything you did, and double check it again, and make sure your fuses, because I can't tell you the number of times put a good fuse in. Supposedly it looked good, but it wasn't good. Because I had fuses like that, didn't I?
Yes, you
They
did.
looked absolutely good, but was tape on one of the legs that you didn't check or something. So, and we got that way
Ooh,
because
that one made me mad.
there was cellophane on one of them, and you'd put it in, and you'd find it later, and it would frustrate you because you didn't look at it right. So you always check that.
So I'm gonna rat Moose Knuckle out on this one. So in class 3, another student, which was my friend, my really good friend, who was supposed to be part of this channel, but for some reason life got in the way. But on his test out, he had the simplest one. If he would have followed the wiring diagram, he wouldn't have been able to figure out, because Doc rewired the ignition switch on him to where it would still plug in, but it wouldn't start. And all he had to do was change out one wire and put it on the right leg. And remember how pissed off he got?
Yep.
He was fuming. He's like, everything's good, but it won't start. What the hell is going on? And then he started looking at wiring diagram, and I'm looking at it. I was like, dude, I already know what's wrong with it. But, you're also talking about Moose Uncle, he's only worked on pickups, and he's done it for fun. He's not in the field.
Yeah.
So, and for everybody to know, everybody in my class was majority of veterans, with the exclusion of me and Stetson. Out of all, how many do we have? We had, let's see, so Scott, Devin, Doug, Thad. So, what, 5?
Yeah.
Well, we had 7 originally, but Robert, he failed out first class. Then Jason tendenced out third class, right?
Yeah.
So out of 5 of us, I was the only one in the field. And yeah, I still got my ass handed to me every day.
Yeah. And the wiring diagram, to double back on that. Another thing was that you always use your wiring diagram. Don't assume. The worst thing about these trucks, and yourself being out there, is that the wiring on the diagram is correct. Always verify, because even with the Freightliner box trucks, you'd look at the wiring diagram. Oh, this is where it goes, and then you say, "No, wait a minute. What the heck is this?" They were very good at not having proper technique. Now, the Cummins wiring diagrams, engine wiring diagrams, are great, because what's there is usually there. But, others, nope.
So, now I'm going to go off of that one. When it comes to the PACCAR, so PACCAR is Kenworth and Peterbilt, when you're looking up a diagram, you have to be so careful, because they don't do it truck by truck. They do it by assembly line. So you'll get a wiring diagram and you compare it to Cummins. Yeah, the Cummins side's correct, but is the Kenworth side correct to the Cummins side?
And that's true.
And when you get a diagram, you'll get a 30-page diagram, and you're like, what's going on? Then you have to go to your right, on the right side, you'll get a table, and it'll say, hey, table 1 is for this series of trucks. Table 2 is for this series of trucks. Table 3 is this series of trucks. I ran into this. So, my first company working for down here in Arizona always had, they call sister trucks. They'd always buy 4 dump trucks at a time. Which, would think, okay, well, this is the same. Yeah. I had 2 trucks that were literally right next to each other. It was 60. The truck's numbers were 64, 65. It was an AC diag problem. I found out the hard way, just because the diagram said that it goes from HVAC module to free switch. I found out the hard way, it doesn't always work that way, because on 64 it was, but 65, it went from IAT sensor, your intake air temperature sensor, and your ambient temperature sensor first. And if you don't know what to look for, you're gonna go down the rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, box trucks same way. Depend on who manufactured the box, where their wiring would come from, or what they tied it into, and their favorite one was to pull it off the battery, which would that make your nightmares run? What the heck's this wire for?
Because it's not on a diagram.
Exactly. And a lot of times the fuse would be in line under the truck and frame rather than in a fuse box.
Right.
So you'd be looking for tail lights, and it's that fuse, and you'd have to crawl through and unwrap and untie and untape and until you got to the fuse.
And and honestly, for all the techs out there that are gonna watch this stuff, you're gonna run into this stuff.
Yep.
If you're not very good at thinking outside the box, you're gonna go through some rabbit holes. Which is kind of the whole point of this channel, because I've seen so many just what the hell situations. Especially at the first company that I worked for. So a lot of these older Kenworths, like your T800s, always had AC issues. So instead of fixing the HVAC module and fixing because they're thin wires, they're like a 26 gauge wire to power all this stuff.
Yeah.
So instead of fixing the actual problem, we had a main tech that would just bypass it, run a brand new wire from the alternator all the way through the cab. And if you don't know what you're looking at, you're going to be asking some questions.
Well, and then on top of that, a lot of this stuff was common sense come in with HVAC problem, and you go and you say, well, it's got to be low on charge because it's not cooling. And the reality of it is that the the filter was plugged. Your in-cab filter, totally plugged up. Pull it off, and you look at the evaporator in there,
Yeah, you
and
see that a lot on the TA80s.
that thing looks like it was used for dragging dirt. So you
Right?
got to spend all the time cleaning it out, and it wasn't undercharged, and sometimes it did show that it was overcharged because it was trying so hard to do what it was supposed to do, but it's plugged up.
And and for a lot of the guys watching this and everything, yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of redundant things, but there's a lot of things that we think are common sense that really isn't. The HVAC filters is a perfect example. So on the TA80s, and even a lot of your Peterbilts, there's 3 AC filters. You have 2 underneath the hood, and then you have 1 in the dash behind the blower motor. And that
Yep.
one behind the blower motor is a pain to get to. I have tiny hands, and it's a pain for me to get to.
Well, we talk about pains to get to, and we talked about this a while back. You and I had air leaks on the underneath the dash in them Freightliners. They don't give you
Okay,
no room to pull anything out.
I'm going to die on this hill, and honestly, I'm okay with it. When it comes to air leaks, you are never going to 100% fix every single air leak. You're not going to do it.
You got that right. You
Especially
can only
on
trim them down.
especially on older trucks. So like a lot of the dump trucks I work on, there's a good part of them that are like 2007, 2006, and there's a couple 2005s. These trucks have Cummins ISMs, which we'll talk about what that engine is here either sooner in a different video. But these trucks are 800, 900, almost a million miles. And every time I go to these trucks, they take forever to build up.
Mm-hmm.
And the pusher axles, which a pusher is what they call a tag axle. It's an adjustable steerable axle that for extra weight. When you see a dump truck, you see it so you have simple dump trucks, you have super dump truck. So a super is anything that has a tag axle on the back of the truck, like a strong arm or a maxle. Different conversation for a different day, but just so everybody understands. Then you have your pusher axles, which goes between your steers and your drive axles. Usually you see 3 of them. Sometimes you get a simple 18 that has 4. But you always see the pushers on the ground, and you can spend 2 or 3 days just on air leaks.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
actually have a perfect. Go for it, Doc.
no, I was going to say the only thing that you can do to even mitigate any of the air leaks is you got to have all the different sizes of plastic hose and all the different sizes of nipples. And when you think you got that one fixed so it quits leaking, guess what?
4 more come up.
Exactly.
So, about a month ago, I got a service call to go to Mesa. 8:30 in the morning. Okay, guys. I'm not a morning person. You can ask Doc this. I am not a morning person. I have so many stories of him just trolling with me. Just because he thinks he's funny.
I am funny.
He is kind of funny.
I'm also
He is
cute
kind
and
of
fluffy.
funny. And so I got a call for a dump truck that was losing secondary air, and a lot of these trucks do asphalt, so they're in the paver. His brakes are locking up because he's dropping too much air. Okay. Sounds like we have a brake pod issue. Then, he's then on the way to the job sites, he's losing air. He can't maintain air. Okay. Sounds like we have an issue. So I go to Mesa and everything. I start diagnosing this truck, and one of the owners is like, okay, it needs 2 down bags. So on a pusher axle, you have an up bag, which is like what it sounds like. It gives the axle to go up. Then you have a down bag, pushes it down. He said it needed 2. It ended up needing 3. and I had to re-weld the bracket. And okay, 3 of them done. Nope. Ended up having not 1 but 3 pusher brake valves because pusher axles do have brakes on them. Do you think it was done after that? No. I found 4 different airlines that were leaking. I found so many fittings. Like my little quick easy service call ended up being a 10-hour day.
Yeah.
And I'm not joking. I was there for 12 and a half hours. I only invoiced for 10. That just gives a point. So like when it comes to air systems, honestly, you're going to be wanting them for all day, even new trucks.
Oh yeah. Or
Now,
you get the call to go out because the truck ain't building air, and you go out there,
have
and the
fun with that.
first thing you do is what? Besides start the truck,
The
check
first thing?
the air tanks, and you
Oh, you
find
talking
that
about draining them?
oh yes, they are
Okay.
froze. The brakes are froze, and there ain't nothing you can do until they thaw out. And it's 26 degrees out, and like I said in Texas, and they ain't gonna thaw out. You are gonna
Okay,
have to
so
you're gonna have to cage all of the brakes and call the wrecker.
yeah. Normally, everybody would see an ad at this point. We don't have any sponsors because this is our first episode. But I am going to spend a little bit of time to tell you guys we do have a merch line coming that we're working on. Doc's going to have some special t-shirts. Meemaw's going to have some special t-shirts. I'm going to have some special t-shirts. They are in the works. So beware. So back to this whole air tank thing. Okay. So for the mechanics out there, even drivers, every driver is technically responsible. Not even technically. In reality, they're required by law to do a pre and a post trip. What does that mean? Pre-trip means before you even get in the vehicle, you got to check tires, you got to check wheels, you got to check all your oil. It's really just engine oil, right?
Yeah,
And washer fluid. Now, you heard that right, washer fluid. That's because in majority of states, especially like Texas, where when it rains, it rains. When it snows, it snows. That's because if you don't have working wiper blades, and I'm not joking, DOT, this is what they will red tag you for wiper blades and washer fluid.
yep,
Because some bureaucrat thought that if you don't have proper wiper blades, washer fluid, you cannot visually see and you're going to hit somebody and kill somebody. And that's not a joke. That's seriously how anal they are. So as a driver, you're supposed to go through all this stuff. And a lot of people think that, oh, I can just lie about it. They'll go through records if you piss them off enough.
yeah,
And they're cracking down. And we're in another video, we're going to talk about the EPA levels and really exactly how bad DOT is getting.
yeah,
From a personal standpoint and kind of like opinion, I think DOT's I think they're kind of borderline a little overpowered.
yeah. We got every manner of trucks out there on the road. I mean, here in Texas, you know, a day don't go by. You know, we're not far out of Midland, Odessa, that you don't hear of the wrecks and whatnot. And and I ain't saying it's the truck's fault or who it is, but that there's getting to be a lot of traffic on the roads and a lot of wrecks out here. And then we got ice. If you haven't looked on the videos, ice on I-40 up there out of Amarillo, over to Deming, and that's all blocked off and whatnot. And then we got snow and ice in Dallas, and like I said, it don't take long to figure out that a little bit of water in your air tanks and you're in trouble.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. You're supposed to, after your post trip, you're supposed to drain all the air out of your tank so you don't get water moisture. Your air dryer filter can only do so much.
I've seen them things come out look like an ice cube.
And again, I'm going to die on this hill. If you look at manufacturer specification, they should be replaced every 6 months. I think they should be replaced every quarter.
Yeah.
They're
think
not
we
an
could.
expensive filter. Well, okay, I take that back. The older ones are. You have a Bendix. It's they call it a 52 millimeter filter.
Mhm.
Those things ain't cheap.
Yeah, and
But
it's like you said, it's one of them you can pay me now, pay me later things.
right.
The
So
pay me
like
later
even
are
though
expensive.
so like your older filters like TRP makes one that's like $26 that fits pretty much majority of your dryers. Now the Bendix 52, they're the only ones who make it's $146. Yeah, that's a lot of money for a filter. Well, I'm telling you what, I'd rather spend that $142 on an air dryer filter every 4 months than deal with half the crap I have to deal with air tanks.
True that.
I
So,
had so on this truck is a 2022 T880, and guys, just because it's new, don't mean anything. Some of these new trucks that are coming from factory, I got more problems with them than I do all the older trucks.
yeah, I can see that.
And we will get into that debate too of what is better, older trucks or newer trucks. I'm gonna tell you right now, newer trucks. Little spoiler alert. But I have pulled every single of these tanks. So like every pusher axle has a tank, and depending on application, there's usually two primary tanks underneath the bed or underneath the cab, depending on design. You have a primary and secondary. Sometimes they have a secondary primary and secondary tank. Usually you have four. You
Yeah,
want to, they have pull cords for a reason. You want to drain them. I
that
had
is true.
one on the same one I did that service call on. I pulled its cord and freaking oil came out of it.
Yeah, a combination of both. Yeah, absolutely.
And here's the thing though. I love the smell of diesel fuel. I cannot stand hydraulic fluid or ATF. I cannot stand it. Or coolant. I will pass.
Well,
But, I get drenched in coolant all the time with these stupid pack cars. But
I'd take it.
the amount of disgusting crap I got out of that air tank.
Yeah,
The air dryer filter legitimately imploded on itself. So I have beads all over me. I have oil all over me. Air, water, you name it.
I had a pipe wrench that I'd hang on to dangle down while I was doing the rest of my work around the truck, and I'm done, adjusting the brakes and greasing and all of this stuff, and it's still puking water.
Yeah, but what do you do in a situation like that?
I just drain it, and I make a comment to the trucker, to the driver, and the foreman, that they need to dread in this air every day. That's going to bite them, and it ended up doing it's the same story forward, but you know,
I mean, you're better off, literally, like in a situation like that where your tanks are that full, you're better off just letting it air up 2 or 3 times to really make sure you get the water out.
oh yeah, well, and this one was a service, so I ended up changing the air dryer anyway. So
So we talked about that. You wanna talk about another argument in the industry?
what's that?
Coolant filters.
Coolant
Yes,
filter,
you heard that right, folks. These big trucks have coolant filters.
and they're one
These
of the most overlooked items there is. Your cord, please.
these trucks take anywhere from 10 to 15 gallons of coolant, depending on the truck.
Yeah,
So they have a filter on it, and a lot of these trucks. No, I don't want to say. I would be confident saying pretty much all of these heavy duty diesels take that red coolant.
yeah, that HOT, I guess they call it the for high temperature EGR, blah blah blah.
And a lot of that is for, like Doc just said, EGR. And guys, your
We got
depth tanks have coolant in them.
Yes, they do.
And a lot of people don't know that. Again, I thought that was common knowledge. It's not. Your depth tanks do. Your dozer valves do. Your so not just your depth dozer, but your field dozer too. They all have coolant in them.
Yes, they do.
EGR coolers have it. And then there are some of your light duty car, like your light duty trucks or even like your sedan cars that have diesels in them, that are using coolant to cool down your charged air cooler instead of using an air to air.
So yeah, definitely.
So yeah, the filter, if you look on Cummins, which so everybody's aware of, we're going to talk specifically about Cummins on this channel. We will get into the other engines. Yes, we will do the argument about Ford, Dodge, and Chevy, but that's a different video. But the coolant filter, like Doc said himself, it is overlooked. If you look at Cummins, they tell you it's 6 months minimum.
Well, and on top of that, the bottle of coolant check strips, that's relatively cheap for a technician or for a service guy or even a truck driver. Just and all it takes is to dip that little strip in your coolant to see if it's pliable or able to handle your situation. And most of the time, it's because the filter hasn't been changed. The filter has a puck in there that dissolves over time to help keep your coolant the proper pH level.
Yeah, so on the filters, and that's why you have to change them. Now, Doc, do you want to go over what Cummins means by minimum replacement?
Yeah. Minimum means that is the least amount of time that you should do it. Anything you go over that, it's like, all right, you're going to adjust your valves at 100,000 miles is suggested, and I'm just throwing this out. It isn't. Don't quote me on that. And you decide, well, they're running good. I'm going to go over. Well, that was minimum. The maximum standard is not far above what the minimum is, because minimum means that puck is gone.
And then, and they also use minimum as kind of a generic spec because it is based off of what size engine it is.
Well, and normal operation. And there ain't
Right.
nothing normal about our operations.
So, and that's actually a good point. So, normal operations, according to Cummins, is what is it? It goes off sea level, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So at sea level, 70 degrees, no humidity, and nothing that's it's what? Nothing over 1500 RPMs for an hour.
Yeah, something like that.
So here in Arizona, we are considered an extreme condition because of the heat. Texas is considered an extreme condition too because of the weather changes.
Well, yeah,
The
and
whole
anytime you drive a truck, you ain't gonna drive it on the flatland forever.
right.
So it changes.
So going off a common standard, and I'm pretty sure Freightliner's the same. I know Cat's the same. You're never gonna have a normal situation. Everything's either gonna be an extreme situation or like a severe situation.
Yep.
And that's gonna be based off of what Quick Serve's gonna tell you, which Quick Serve is your Cummins library.
True that.
And now what I've noticed for like the 100th anniversary X15 or a lot of your newer X12s, they're not doing a mileage thing anymore. They're doing kind of like what Packard does. At this time so it goes off a month. So this many months in service, you go to service A, service B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and it'll tell
Yeah.
you what to.
That's plus or minus. That's great. But then there's like Brandon says, there are times that truck might sit for a week or two, which goes away from the fact that there ain't no mileage on it. And not dump trucks, but there are times where you have lay down or whatnot like that. So the mileage is a better indicator, but yet I understand that to keeping it simple so that okay, you're in the A category or the B category gives you these level of maintenance items that should be accomplished at this time. That's like my tractor, my John Deere. It gives me, okay, you should change your oil filter every year, oil and oil filter on the engine every year or this many hours. Well, reality sets in, and I ain't gonna get their hours on my tractor because I don't get out on it every day. I might get on it once every 2 weeks or so. But the idea is that, okay, in a year I got to change the oil on this thing, which is no problem for me. But that's the reality of it. And even though it may only have 50 hours on that oil, where it calls for 150 hours on your oil. So, that's the price you pay for owning these things.
Right.
So it's
That and so like what Doc is saying here is oil, the base oil does not break down. It's the additive packs.
mm-hmm.
And yes, there is a shelf life on it. I don't anybody can argue this. But the fact of the matter is there's a shelf life on it. If you ever looked at warranties, if anybody's ever wondered, like, especially with the big trucks, or even pickups, even cars, why is it 100,000 miles or 3 or 5 years? With as much driving as I do, I mean, I bought my used Jeep. I had 207,000 miles on it. I bought it in February, and it has almost 300,000 on it now. And I just did
Well,
that from February
I
to now.
told you about my gray truck.
Right.
I change my oil every 5,000 miles, and like I told you, if that truck drives 50 miles in a month, it ain't gonna get there.
Right.
So it'll be coming up on its yearly oil change here soon.
Yearly oil change. But that's just so that's why manufacturers do that kind of stuff. It's either a year or a mileage because they don't know how much you're gonna drive it. Just the fact of the game.
Yeah.
And like if I remember right, like a lot of your like 530, and I don't know why Toyota's doing the 008. I don't understand that. I'm probably not gonna look into it unless we get asked to. Have you seen that, Doc?
No, I haven't. I'll have to look it up.
It's literally water. And so when you hear 0W, so your W stands for your winter, and then you actually have the actual weight of the oil. How can we dumb that down, Doc?
30 weight.
Go to 30 weight.
Original oil was based upon a TBN number, your base number. 30 weight oil was the standard forever. Okay, most everybody run 30 weight in their cars in the old days. I'm not a spring chicken, but anyway, in the old days, and then we went from 30 to 15, and then to 10, and then to 5, and then now we're down to 0, I guess. And I have no idea, and like I said, I haven't looked into the additive packages on these oils and whatnot. 30 weight didn't have a great lot of additive package. Our additive package is when we opened up a can of STP and poured it in it. So, like I said,
Yeah, but you're also talking about a time where everything in your service manager told you how to adjust valves and all this other stuff. They don't do that nowadays.
Absolutely. Your owner's manual came with how to adjust valves and brakes and clutch and all the other stuff. So yeah, but that's like I said. When I'm not avoiding 20 weight oil or all of that other stuff. So, and then like Brandon said when we started, it's an additive package deal, and I don't know what they add to them, and I don't know what you can add to 0 to make it any better. Or like I said, I got to look into that one.
Yeah, so 0W means it has no winter capability, and it's 8 weight, which is absolutely crazy. And a lot of your Hondas take 0 to 20, so it's basically just 20 weight. And a lot of the additives, so like on our diesels, so me and Doc are Dodge guys. We love our Cummins, because we're Cummins based. Does that mean we hate the other engines? No, we just Doc, and I'm just gonna tell everybody right now, Doc uses his truck for what they are designed to. He uses them for farming. He uses them for work. I'm the dumbass here. I'm the one who wants to take him to the next level. I'm the performance guy, which he makes fun of me all the time. I turn the camera on, but I have behind me, it's an 05 2500, and it's a built 5.9. And it's reliable. And I've done a lot of work with it, and I've towed with it when I shouldn't have. But that's my thing, and that's why we're doing this channel, is because, well, like I said before, Doc's got a lot of experience, I have a lot of experience, and I think it's interesting having somebody who uses the trucks for their purpose compared to somebody who doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I like big turbos. I like doing burnouts and donuts and and because of this guy, yeah, I'm calling Doc out right now. I used to love rolling coal, and now I don't, thanks to him. Doc, do you want to explain why rolling coal is actually a bad thing for
Well,
people like me?
yeah, I got a piston on the shelf out here, signed by a lot of guys. Yeah, that the rolling coal is just adding extra fuel to the system. It takes its toll. It's gonna get you. It will get you. Rolling coal will get you.
I was
Uh,
talking more for the performance aspect, but you can go into the realistic aspect too.
and I grew up in an era when the semis were constantly rolling coal, but they was a completely different system. This wasn't electronic injectors. This was all mechanical injection, and it was the turbos weren't exactly VGT actuated or electronic or whatnot. They were waste gated. It was either working or it weren't working, and when it weren't working, it was rolling coal. So you wasn't getting enough air to get the fuel to combust, and then it turned black. But back then also, you might be doing an overhead on a K19 or whatnot like that at 100,000 miles. But that in today's world is, the only reason why you'd be doing one in today's world is because you hand grenaded something, and probably get into that here somewhere down the line too. Is it's the nature of parts ain't the greatest anymore. Because back then you put liners in it if you had to, your new bearings and rings, and away you'd go. But and like I said, if you had to on the liners, I've seen a lot of times where the liners weren't changed; they were just you know touched up, and away they go. Now you say, well, you couldn't touch up a liner. Back then, they weren't made of the same stuff they are now. EGR and the advent of emissions, whatnot, they had to make the liners harder. They're harder than woodpecker lips right now. So, and if you ever seen a woodpecker, his lips are pretty hard. Brandon knew that was going to end up on here, but
Um, the point I was trying to make is, so when you're rolling coal and everything, yeah, it's a big old cloud, but you're wasting power. Is what you're doing.
that's the next thing. Yes, and rolling
And
coal on the old things was okay. You're going uphill, hanging gears. You better hope that you're getting fuel in there. But like Brandon said, you're wasting power. If you properly use the fuel to the extent that it's supposed to, then you're putting power down.
and just for fun, so the other day, me and Doc were talking about his favorite Cummins, because this guy has literally have had every version of the truck except the new ones.
Yeah.
And I was surprised what he told me. Doc, what is your favorite Cummins
Well,
out of the
my
pickup?
favorite one, yeah, and if Kuba was up on here and Nate's there somewhere, but I have that
Can we
2001,
get
which
Cuba?
I don't know, that 2001's got VP44, and that truck has been, in its own. If you can keep a dash in a Dodge, you're good. And my dash is totally gone on this thing here, but this truck has been. I mean, it's gone through. I can tell the stories a number of times it towed, and it's bordering on 350,000 miles on it. It just keeps going. It's been you know mostly maintenance items on the thing. From water pump belts. Did have a radiator go out one time, clutch fan go out, but you know what? That's it, and it's still got the same transmission on it that it hadn't been rebuilt. But I had a VP44 go out right after I got it, and I put one in it, and all the troubleshooting, all this stuff, and got it all up with the right lift pump and the right pressure and the right filter system, and she hasn't let me down yet.
You hear that, guys? He likes a second gen. I'm a third gen guy. I love my common rail. This guy likes the freaking VP44s, which is the most hated one.
Yep.
I don't understand it personally. I'm not a big fan of the second gen look, but I don't understand the hate with the VP44. I get it from a power aspect. You can't get a crap load of power out of them. That's why you do a P swap, P pump swap. But even with P pumps, you're limited on reliability.
Yeah.
Because even with the VP44, it's all on how can you keep it cool. You have that same issue with common rail.
Yeah. So.
Now, I can't tell you that the transmission in the blue truck is stock and it's the original one. It's probably the original case, maybe. Maybe.
Got the original grease on it.
Maybe. But that you're also talking about a guy who maintains his truck the correct way. I'm still shocked you have it. That's what blows me away.
Yeah.
You use the
Well,
truck for its purpose.
it's to replace it in my world. I mean, it's got a flatbed on it. I use it to tow the gooseneck horse trailer and the gooseneck flatbed, and that ain't saying that my 2011 isn't set up for a flatbed and gooseneck. But either way, the 11 rides a little more comfortable than the dually does. The 2011 crew cab is longer than the 2001. And the 2001's easier to get around in town a little bit. They don't make parking spots for these things. They make them for them little Hot
Mom
Wheels
cars.
cars.
And
Yeah.
little hot wheel cars.
Anyone who owns one of these big trucks knows what I mean. You got to park plumb out in the middle of the North 40 just to find a parking spot, and then when you come out, there's 3 guys around you. But
That's so true.
but anyway, that old Dodge ain't, like I said, she ain't let me down. It's like an old Timex watch; it just keeps on a ticking.
Just keeps on ticking. Yeah, but also again, it comes down to you actually taking care of the truck.
Yeah.
And for a lot of the technicians coming into this and everything, not only are we telling you real world experience, we're telling you personal stories too. Things that we personally have seen. And I might die on this hill by myself. Maybe Doc will agree with me. Anybody going through trade school right now to learn to be a mechanic, you're going to be taught to go by the book.
Mm.
And they're going to tell you the book is always right. And I can tell you right now, it's not.
Well, another thing, even on the book, the book mostly right, but it's based upon uh,
Perfect conditions.
thank you, everything being perfect. Like they're at school, when you go to unplug the connectors and they're all pristine and all this stuff. And the reality is after, you know, 3 or 4 winters out there in the field or in the sun or whatnot, you go to your first connector and you try to open it up and it shatters in your hand. That's the real world. Or the on the Framatome connectors, the slide lock won't slide out. So you can get it out to test the connection or the switch you're going to look at or sensor you're going to look at. So that's real world, and those things suck, but that's what we deal with.
That and emissions is getting harder. Cafe standards are getting worse, which we're going to cover all that. And as the rabbit hole I went down the other day, Doc, with the 7.2. The internet's great, but there's a lot of false information out there. And we're gonna kind of try to figure out what is false, what's not.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first looked up the 7.2, the new pickup engine for the Dodges for the Rams, same freaking company. I don't care. I can die on that hill. When people come out and said the 7.2, they said it's going to be external injectors and glow plugs and all this other stuff. Doc, what was your response to that?
Why would they run glow plugs? They've never run glow plugs.
Cummins has been against it.
Yep.
And external injections, that can mean one of two things. Either meaning Cummins is going to go to a unit pump injection, which why would they do that?
Yeah. They didn't live long with the cap system before they went to the full-blown common rail.
And there is actually a misconception out there, and like we are trying to prove a lot of myths wrong because diesel gets rather hated on quite a bit because people think it's back in the 80s. Yeah, back in the 80s, they smoked a lot, they were inefficient, and they were loud. The newer diesel engines, you can't tell they're diesel. You can't even hear them.
No. Well,
I
like I
don't like
told
it.
them,
I don't
like I
like that.
told, I told them in school, the idea is that the emissions coming out of the tailpipe is cleaner than the air going in. And if
And
anyone's
what
been
was
around,
the other point that we made the other day?
I don't know. We make a
Oh,
lot.
that's what it was. So like going back to like Doc. Doc uses the trucks for what they're designed for. Because of people like me, they had to redesign their pickups. That's why they're getting to the point where they are. So like when the 12 valve first came out, it was designed to work.
True
It
that.
was never designed to power. It was never designed for that. You want to go more into that, Doc?
Well, I think I told you about, years ago, guys would take the Perkins four-cylinder engine and whatnot and put them in trucks because they wanted a diesel. And, yeah, there was a lot of modifications to be made, but a lot of them made them work. And, with a original 5.9, 6 BT and 4 BT engines, uh, they came out of air compressors and welders. And the 4 BT, got its foundation in the UPS and FedEx trucks and whatnot. And then they went to the 5.9 and then up to 6.7 whatnot. But those engines proved themselves out on the road. In fact, I think you can still find some 4 BTs in some of them old FedEx trucks and junkyards and
Right.
whatnot.
Well then, so the point I was trying to make is so like when the 12 valve came out, it was designed to work. It was designed to be an agriculture truck. It was designed for construction. It's people like me that use them for daily drivers, for grocery store runs. They weren't designed for turn them on, let them warm. No, not necessarily that, because they were designed to. You used to have to let them warm up and everything. Now it's just kind of just you can turn key and go. You
Yeah,
should still let it warm up a
definitely.
little bit, not idle for 2 hours like Stetson. But they weren't designed to go constant stop and go. They were designed to start, go long haul. But it's because people like me that love trucks that use them for everything. Now they had to redesign it. That's why the 6.7 came out. That and emissions.
And they
So
had
like
to
if you
make them kind of user friendly, I think the word we used.
yeah,
Meaning, excuse me, the 5.9, it could be worked on if you had a wrench or two. Well, the 6.7, you need a little bit of knowledge with it to work on them.
and you need a
You know, I'm not-
computer.
yeah, and I'm not saying you people are stupid. I'm saying they make most cars. If you talk about the difference between a 69 Camaro and a today's Camaro, we're comparing apples and oranges in reality.
And that's actually a good point too, because and I was gonna actually make this point like way earlier in this episode, but you know, manufacturers are making things hard to work on. They don't want backyard mechanics no more. They want certified mechanics. Like, you're hiring Mercedes. You have to have a scan tool to open up the hood.
Yeah.
I don't know about most people. I don't even know like majority of technicians. How many actually have their own scan tool? Nobody's got like 10 grand to spend on a snap-on tool just to open up
Well,
a hood. Not gonna happen. I
the,
don't even have one, and I've been doing this forever. And I own my own business. I am a certified and licensed mobile mechanic here in Arizona. I don't have one. I mainly work on heavy duty stuff, but I do have my small little one to plug into cars and stuff. I can do cars. I prefer not to, but I will.
And the problem with that line of thinking is every year they change. You got to update
Yep.
them, and it costs you more money. And if you get it to use it a couple times, it doesn't amortize itself out very well. So the idea behind amortization is okay. If I buy a tool, am I going to use it, or is it going to sit on the shelf? If I'm going to pay thousands of dollars for a tool, well, I better be using it.
Right. Then even agriculture is getting to the point where it's getting just like automotive.
Yes.
John Deere's the perfect example. They're not going to sell you the software.
Exactly.
And I'll even go back to Kenworth on this. Kenworth really doesn't like selling it's called DV4. It's for Packers. The only reason I was able to get it for one of the companies I contract for is because they have bought in so many trucks. These guys have spent $10 million easily on trucks with Kenworth. And we had to really convince them to give it the software. The software is $2,200 if you get the approval. Because Kenworth would rather have their guys go out, which their mobile rate's over $200 an hour. You want to know why mechanics are so expensive? It's the amount of tools.
True that.
Just in this garage alone, I'd show you guys, but my garage is a mess. I have 3 Snap-on boxes, 2 Snap-on boxes, and I didn't buy them from Snap-on. I bought them from Cornwell used. The amount of tools I have in them, plus my Jeep, I have easily over $100,000 worth of tools, and I don't want to know how much Doc has in tools.
Well, did that get on that same thing? That my 2011, 4-wheel drive, 3500, and replace the U joints in the front end. You got to buy all the special pullers to pull the hubs and stuff. And
Yep.
okay, you just everything changes every year, and you got to buy this tool to do that. And okay, I bought the hub puller and whatnot, and I've used it 4, maybe 5 times, but still, the cost of that, or having someone else do it, getting to the point in the age group where that's gonna hopefully don't slow down too much. What I used to do in a day, I think Tim McGraw used to say, what I used to do, once I was good at it, but it takes me longer to do what I do. Toby Keith, pardon me. But
Lima.
what I used to do in an hour or two, it takes me about 2 days to do because the body's got to recover. But I still keep after it, and another beauty of that is I am retired, and my day usually it begins and ends with chores, and so the truck's in between. I told Brandon, I said, I got the Suburban in the garage, got to put a fender on it and whatnot, but it's cold out there, and I got a heat in the garage, so I ain't going out there.
Yeah. And I'm sitting in my garage. I have a hoodie on because it's a little bit nippy here in Arizona. And but we have a couple good episodes coming up. I'm not looking forward to the emission one, but we did that for you guys. And no, Doc, I did not finish the research.
That's what we're laughing at. That was mind-numbingly dumb.
And we're gonna make it entertaining for you guys and everything. It was dumb for us, but we'll make it entertaining.
Exactly.
And then we have a secondary channel. It's the ShadowsaurusRex. We're gonna be doing a lot of kind of cool projects. We have a BMW diesel behind me. We have the blue race truck. We have the Jeep, which the Jeep's gonna be a fun one because we're doing a Cummins swap. Thanks, Doc, for that one. Oh, and I don't get things twisted and everything. Doc does know performance.
Yeah, you saw my video.
Yeah, and he's got a pretty cool Chevy V8 out in the garage he likes to play with.
I'm waiting for the truck for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
across the street.
and I'm probably gonna make a lot of Jeep guys mad and everything. I do not like the 4.0. It's a strong motor, but it's gutless, and I don't like it. I'm so used to driving a Dodge that has over 1,000 horse, And then, I got the Weiss Beamer that I drive. That's way faster and it's more fun to drive than the Jeep. I make jokes about when I'm coming home from Mesa, and I call my wife like, "Hey, I'll see you in 5 business days," because it's just gutless. And I can't even say I get smiles per gallon. I get frowns per gallon. I'm going slow, and the thing just consumes fuel. So
just
I
don't
was
get
looking.
just
Huh?
don't get in the high speed lane.
Well, I avoid that lane. I don't push the Jeep past 75, and even then, sometimes I don't like pushing over 70. If it's really windy, I don't go past 70 because that Jeep feels like it's gonna roll. It's a '96 Grand Cherokee. It's a 2-wheel drive. Yeah, that's right. I didn't even get a 4-wheel drive. It's the first generation of electronics for that, which we were kind of going over that a little bit. Electronics are getting to the point where you kind of need a specialty scan tool now to diagnose on them. So I was looking into stroker 4.0s, and I was like, you want to? I can just put a 4BT in this. And Doc over here is like, hey, they make a Commonwealth 4BT. I was like, now I hate you. Now, when I say I hate him, I'm just joking with him because I love him to death. But so I went down the rabbit hole. I went down the freaking rabbit hole. So I looked into it. It's called a B4.5. It's actually a keyless B4.5, which we'll explain that stuff later. It uses the exact same pistons and rods as the 6.7s. I have a 6.7.
I have the piston.
Yes, he has the pistons. The head, literally, if so much crap was in here. So right behind me, I have the head sitting on cardboard. And the block is in the corner. Which we're gonna put that on the ShadowsaurusRex channel. We're gonna rebuild that. But we're gonna do. Doc doesn't agree with me, but we're doing a high horsepower build. We're putting a flatbed on it for my service truck. But Doc's gonna have some input. I'd love to get him here to do it in person, but he's got enough stuff going on with chores.
Yeah, true that.
You got a pony that would be depressed if you left him.
That ain't no pony. He's about 10 hands higher than you.
Well, that's not hard when I'm 5'3".
Yeah, the horse is 5'4".
Still bigger than me. But yeah, so we got a bunch of good stuff coming up, entertaining stuff. We got a couple. Actually, we have endless amount of content for you guys with just going auto and diesel. This one was just kind of shenanigans, just to get a feel for this.
Definitely.
And so I don't know. You want to keep going, Doc, or you want to go get going for chores?
I'm gonna have to get going. Go on
All
out
right,
here.
You want to do the outro? Or you want me to?
You go ahead.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching our shenanigans today. This is with your host ShadowsaurusRex and the one and only Doc. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.
All righty then.